The bad, the truth, the ugly. In this video, I'm going to share the 6 things Etsy sellers won't tell you. The first hard truth is success doesn't begin the day you open your shop. Let's be honest, I've been there, many new sellers have been there. When they finally launch their shop, they're full of excitement and have high hopes of the floodgates opening and sales rolling in immediately, but sadly, it's usually crickets instead. If this is you, this is normal. There are over 4 million active sellers on Etsy. Do you really expect to start making sales right out the gate? Is it possible? Yes, but in reality, it takes time, hard work, and a lot of learning in the beginning stages of starting your business. I opened my shop March 26, 2020, and didn't have my first organic sale until July 9th, 2020. That's nearly 4 months until I had my first sale from someone other than friends and family. Looking back on it, those were the hardest working 4 months I've had to this day. I was trying anything and everything to make things happen. I was consistently adding 5 to 10 new listings a day, studying other successful shops, and consuming every YouTube video, blog post, and Facebook group post I could get my eyes on to figure out how to taste success. And to really put things into perspective, it wasn't until that fall where I really started to see consistent daily sales and a large volume of orders. I'm not saying this is how it is for everyone. You could easily see success sooner, and I know sellers that have, but what I'm saying is enjoy the process, stay patient, and know that if you stick with it and put in the work, success will come and it will all be worth it. I also believe that sellers who have had success need to remember it's important to stay current and active in your shop. I'm speaking from experience. Last year, we had a great year on Etsy. Since starting our channel and diversifying into other businesses, our focus has shifted and we haven't made our main POD shop a priority when it comes to actively adding new current designs, increasing our listing count, and growing our following. Because of that, we have seen a decrease in traffic and sales. I think it's important to stay up to date with what's trending now to make sure your shop has designs that are current with trendy fonts, color palettes, graphics, and themes. The more relevant you are, the more success you will have. The second hard truth about Etsy is it's not 100% passive. Selling print on demand on Etsy is an excellent source of active passive income. I'll explain what I mean. It really is 90% passive after you have laid the groundwork, but I honestly don't think it is 100% passive. It entails a lot of customer service and consistent work to stay relevant. As your business begins to scale, so does the amount of customer service. This is one of the only downsides of selling on Etsy versus merch by Amazon. You are dealing with returns, exchanges, and customer questions yourself. It can become very time consuming if you aren't using the resources Etsy gives you, like message snippets and setting up the frequently asked questions section in your shop. You will realize after having your shop open for a little while that you get asked a lot of the same questions and it can be quite repetitive. Do yourself a favor, take advantage of message snippets and have your FAQs built out answering the most common questions you get. You can even consider including some of the most common questions in photo cards on your listings. Do what you can to make it as passive as possible and to reduce the amount of time you have to work. As for designing and listing, a handful of designs we created at the very beginning still sell very well today, which I would consider to be very passive. But I also believe that you can't add 100 listings to your shop in the beginning and then be done designing forever. That's like if your parents never bought you new clothes as you grew taller and older. Trends are constantly changing, so you need to be active in your research to know what is current and selling. Like I said earlier, the more active and relevant you are, the more money you will make on Etsy. Don't be misled into thinking selling on Etsy is 100% passive and easy money, because if you think that, you'll be extremely disappointed. With that being said though, there are definitely things you can do to set it up to be as passive as possible. I would much rather run a business that's 90% passive than trade 100% of my time for money making someone else rich. The third hard truth about Etsy is they are notorious for suspending accounts for no reason. Unfortunately, the risk of shop suspension is just a part of the life of an Etsy seller. It can and most likely will happen to you, especially if you're a new seller who just opened their account. If you don't believe me, go sort my videos by most popular, and my video about shop suspension is my second most popular video. After having it happen to me 3 different times now, with the only explanation being that it was a mistake, I've concluded it is probably done by bots to create a safer marketplace. But in reality, it happens far too often to legit print-on-demand sellers and shops. Etsy needs to address and fix this problem, but until then, plan on it happening to you. If you did nothing wrong and you didn't violate any of the policies, you will be able to get your shop back with no problem. It may just take some time. The only thing you can do is email Etsy's customer support through their help center, explaining your situation, and then patiently wait. While you're waiting to get your shop reinstated, I recommend that you keep designing so you are ready to go with lots of designs to list once you gain access back to your shop. Don't waste your time pouting like I did the first time it happened to me. Use your time productively and take advantage of the time to create new designs. Don't mess with anything that is copyrighted. Make sure you check uspto.gov for trademark phrases or keywords before you start designing or doing SEO. And don't rip off other people's designs. You are at the mercy of Etsy no matter how big and successful your shop is, which is really scary when you think about it. This is why I think it is critical to diversify and not have your Etsy print-on-demand business as your only source of income. You need to have a backup source of income, whether it's your own Shopify store, merch by Amazon, or something completely different in case Etsy were to close your shop, whether you violated a policy or not. I'm not sharing this to scare you out of selling on Etsy, but I think it is something that needs to be addressed so that everyone is aware of the risk it entails. With that said though, Etsy is still such an incredible opportunity with so much money you can make, and that is why I'm still selling on Etsy today. The fourth hard truth is there are a lot of copycats on Etsy. Nothing makes us feel more deflated than seeing another seller copy our design pixel for pixel. As crazy as it sounds, we have even had other sellers save our listing photos to their computer and use all of our photos for their listing. It's crazy what people will do if they find a bestseller that they know is making good money. Just know that no matter how careful and cautious you are to prevent theft, it will still happen. We watermark all of our listing photos and still have sellers rip off our designs, and one of the biggest problems with this is actually the SVG shops. There are some that will steal your design pixel for pixel and then resell it to other shops, saying that the design is original and okay for commercial use. The seller who then purchases the design think it is 100% okay to list it in their shop. This is one major reason why I advise against purchasing designs off of Etsy, because there's a fairly good chance it could have been stolen from another Etsy seller who could then report your listing. Know that this will happen, but don't let it hinder your progress and discourage you. Do everything you can to protect your images with watermarks or other precautions to prevent copying as much as you can, but try not to let it bring you down if it happens to you. We don't actively search for our stolen designs because it usually just drains us, but we have a saved message snippet to send to the sellers to give them the benefit of the doubt and a chance to remove them before reporting the listing. Most of the time they are courteous and apologize and they remove the listing. Honestly, most say they purchased the design from an SVG shop without knowing there was a problem. Sometimes you will get sellers who will fight it and not be willing to cooperate, but don't let it get you heated or let it waste your positive, productive energy. Just move on and focus on creating your next best-selling design. I feel like I've said this a lot in my videos already, but I can't say it enough. Please respect other sellers when you're doing your trend research. Inspiration and plagiarism are two completely different things. Besides, if you are ripping off other designs, you are too late. If you truly want to succeed on Etsy, bring something new to the table. Make something unique and different based on the trending elements you find. Don't be a part of the problem. The fifth hard truth is you will create designs that never sell. I'm sorry to break the news to you, but not everyone will love or buy every single design you create. There will be times when you spend a lot of energy creating a design you may love, but it will never sell. And this can really be discouraging as a designer. This is part of the experiment process. We've created designs that we 100% thought would be our next bestseller, but it didn't sell once. And then we have had designs that we threw together really quickly to get new listings up that ended up becoming some of our best sellers. There are a few lessons to learn from this. 1, don't overcomplicate the designing process, and remember, sometimes the simpler the design, the better. Less is more. 2, selling on Etsy is a game of experimentation. Don't be afraid to experiment with different design styles, niches, and products. I'm not saying to neglect trend research or to design the simplest thing in the world and it will be your next bestseller, but I'm saying to be willing to experiment and know not all experiments are successful. 3, Etsy really is a numbers game. The more you experiment and the more listings you create based off of trend research, the higher the chances you will have at finding more winning designs that you can double down on. During this process, not everything will sell, and that is completely normal. The 6th hard truth is you're designing for others, not yourself. Sometimes I think we forget that we are not the customer and that it's very easy to fall into the trap of only creating designs we would wear ourselves instead of creating designs for others. I don't think you should completely ignore your own creativity and interests, but at the same time, you shouldn't only focus and create what you would personally wear because you will miss out on a lot of opportunities to make sales in different areas. I've learned over the past few years of selling on Etsy though, that sometimes following this model of designing can often lead to creative burnout, which is completely normal, but you need to figure out a system that works for you to not feel burnt out as quickly or as often. It's kind of like when you enjoy doing something as a hobby, but as soon as you turn it into a business, it's not as enjoyable anymore. I feel like some of the main contributors to creative burnout are perfectionism, self-doubt, stress, and not moving on once you hit a wall. It's important to have ways to overcome these contributing factors in order to keep growing your business. You can manage perfectionism by setting a time limit for your designing process or by getting a second opinion on a design or specific design elements you're unsure about. You can fight self-doubt by practicing self-compassion, avoiding comparing yourself to other sellers as much as possible, and remembering that you are your biggest inner critic. You can manage stress by taking a break, exercising, meditating, or listening to positive and uplifting music. Lastly, when you feel stuck in the design process, move on to a different priority and come back to it later. You can't force creativity. Take a break and do something that inspires you. Find your own ways to cope with creative burnout because it's not if you will ever feel it, it's just a matter of when, especially when you are designing for others and not yourself. You can't grow a business if you are burnt out, so work on finding the correct balance and strategies to keep yourself sane. Because you watched this video, I think you'll like this one. I share 9 changes I would make to grow fast on Etsy if I started over today. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.